To enjoy this and other great episodes on Patreon, check out the link in the description and subscribe via the Black Kluge tier for full access to over 100 exclusive episodes. For those of you who would like some QF swag on Teepublic, t-shirts, magnets, mugs, what have you, also click on the link in the description.
You can never tell your wife your fantasies and your sexuality.
You know, I heard Dr. Sarno on the news.
Oh, did they interview him?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Did he sound good? Because he's such a great guy.
Yeah, he sounded great.
Yeah. You got to read his book, Healing Back Pain and Mind-Body Connection, Dr. John Sarno. The guy's a freaking genius. I'm not kidding you. It's really important. Everybody read that.
I may need him soon.
We were joking on a wrap-up show the other day about how you're so into Dr. John Sarno that you think he can cure almost anything.
Pretty much,
including, like, at one point, I think it's insinuated that he might be able to cure you from being gay.
I believe he could.
You said
he doesn't even know that he can do that.
You said that to me once.
I do believe
This is something Dr. Sarno doesn't even know.
Dr. Sarno doesn't even understand.
So do you think that's an illness, being gay? That's the funny part.
No, it's not an illness, but it's a deeper psychological issue than you would imagine. Because I know people go, well, I was 5 years old and I was gay. Well, let me tell you something. You could be 5 years old and be OCD. You could be a lot of different things.
Right, OCD is another thing that you feel Dr. Sarno could cure.
He cured me, but he didn't even know it. I put two and two together and figured it out.
After the show, I do executive time.
I know. I thought of you when I read this.
Yeah, I go right to my office. Everyone thinks I'm in there working, but I sleep.
Anyway, Macaulay was on a podcast the other day.
Right.
Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum podcast.
Oh, the Michael Rosenbaum podcast. How do you get on that? Inside of You. I like that the podcast has a name, too. How about just like the Michael Rosenbaum show? My podcast is called Inside of You.
Like, what do you learn on Inside of You?
Well, you really get into the person, and it's sort of a double entendre. You know, it's like I'm fucking you, but I'm really just inside your head.
Because
I've seen
people wash their hands until their skin falls off.
Yeah. It's exhausting, OCD. So, and my shrink told me I don't have OCD. And I said, what kind of shrink are you? I don't know. He says, it's not OCD. I go, well, if that ain't OCD, where I'm sitting
Please tell me what I have.
And touching my iPhone 75 times, and so nothing bad will happen to me. If that ain't OCD, what kind of fucking psychiatry are we talking about here?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of gay people.
Yeah, there have always been, yeah.
What is a gay Christmas movie? In other words, it's following a couple that's gay in the movie? I read you even like shit in front of these guys. Like it was just like there was no even private bathroom on this thing, right?
No, I didn't. Who said that?
Oh, okay.
No, there was. I peed. There was a
that.
public. There was a bathroom that we'd use, but I'm not. I mean, there's shit in the woods, bro. What's the problem?
All right.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to QF, a podcast about Howard Stern. I'm your host, Phil Moore, a.k.a. Jim Fix, and with me for this one is Mr. Jay Santi. Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday, sir.
Yes, I will be known as Birthday Boy because I have yet to become a man, Sansi.
Guys, this is this is a patchwork quilt of a show because we had some editing issue. I had some recording issues last time we started this thing. It's a clip from 2003 about Howard rating. I'm not joking. Rating comedians. You know, this is like asking Beth to rate chefs, or asking Robin to rate diets. So the first little clip involved Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor, and I knew it would be a great clip for Jay, who loves comedy as much as I do, if not more so. And it's just rife for even discussion, arguments, you name it, and the gall of Wiggy of all people to fucking review comedians based on how much shit he gave Johnny Carson over the years for saying, oh, this one's allowed to sit on the couch and this one isn't. Then he has the gall to start naming who he thinks is a genius and who isn't. I know that got you really upset when we started this.
Oh, please. And, as you guys know, I go down into YouTube, which, by the way, YouTube seems to be like monetizing all of his stuff a little bit more and more. And I see that a lot of stuff is getting taken off. People are trying to put them back. So now I've found that Daily Motion has been my way to find Wiggy stuff. Mm-hmm. In any case, I've been going down listening to the older stuff, and I found like certain aspects of not only Wiggy but also the crew of their ratings, critiques, and conversations that really, really grinds my gears, because I've said that none of them know anything about any type of subject matter. So I'll ask you, of the three things that annoys you about his ratings or his thoughts about stuff, music, comedy, movies, even his comic books, his fake fascination. What's the most annoying of what he critiques that it gets in your crawl?
Well, because I'm such a music dork, I mean, I could say movies, but he does know something about some movies here and there. But they're all equally bad. But music's probably the worst, especially considering he's, trying to repackage himself as some kind of music aficionado and trying to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Doesn't know a thing about music. Doesn't care about music. As we know, NPD sufferers don't care about anything except their own ego gratification. And then just recently he did it's not a birthday show, it was Beth's birthday. He literally went on the air, surprise show. It was last Monday, and it was basically pre-recorded over the weekend. He had Robert Downey Jr., John Bon Jovi, who looked like, fucking B. Arthur, like really like just that bouffant hair of his, all white silver fox. She's like, Allison looks better than John Bon Jovi at this point. and then Robert Downey Jr. with pink pants. Yeah, it's a good look. And then started saying, "Oh, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do it like the old days. We're going to all pick songs and I'll do the talk-ins." And like with the old days, dude, you hated music. You couldn't get away from it fast enough. You wanted it to be about you, not the fucking music.
Yeah, and it sucks that that's now become his go-to when he needs filler, when he needs to do that, because he knows he could just put a band on and just let them go for whatever amount of time, and that's just basically the show.
Yeah.
With me, the most annoying out of his comic book fake love of music was, secondly, sports. I hate when they talk sports, especially the only one in there who would have at least the most legitimacy to talk sports would have been Artie.
I think so.
And even in the early days when they didn't have that Artie factor, when it was like Jackie or Fred, and Gary would seem to be like I guess the Bob Uecker or like some of like whatever sport historian you can go with. Mm-hmm. And they spoke over it, but the most that really got to me is his thoughts on stand-up comedy. I hate it. I hate it every moment he would even speak about this.
Well, he revered Jackie Mason, and I never really cared for Jackie Mason, and who, by the way, has maybe the worst reputation in the business aside from Robin Williams. He's just universally loathed. I think it's just because Jackie Mason was such an asshole to so many people. You'd think it might be Pat Cooper for his abrasive manner, but no, loads of people still love Pat. But I don't think anybody, aside from Bob Hope, Jackie Mason might have been the most hated because of just the way he rubbed people the wrong way. But anyway, I think the other thing is with sports, though, this is the one save for him. He's never actually claimed to know anything about sports. So and he admits, I don't watch it. I don't, but the idea that he's a Knicks quote unquote, he's got courtside Knicks tickets that are free, and doesn't know anything about the game and couldn't care less.
It's like he anytime he talks about that softball game that they played in NBC, he would make this conversation about how he was the only person that hit a ground rule home run, and it's like there's no such thing. Oh my god! But yeah, he never missed it. But just the whole room with their whole. The John Hines and the Garys, and maybe if Will gets in the conversation, he'll know a little something. But the rest of even JD knows his football stuff. But whenever gets into it. He goes, Wiggy's like, the only thing I really get into is when the Super Bowl playoffs start happening. That's all I really start paying attention to.
The only downside, I think the only thing that the one thing that would be somebody would be critical of with regard to their discussions, and Kerry brought this up. He called Gary and Artie New York homers, and that they just they only know about the New York teams, franchises, and that's really it. But I think with Artie, it was teams of his era, all teams, not even just New York teams. He could probably tell you whole rosters from the era he grew up in, and now. Unless you're into fantasy sports, I'm the same way. I mean, I know teams I follow, and I know some, big names from other teams, obviously, and coaches and what have you. But otherwise, I don't remember, batting average. I don't remember, who's got how many goals in what season. That was something you do when you're a kid. You collect cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll go into this one, guys, and we promise it's going to make you as livid in some cases, maybe more than us. So here we go.
So then one listener wrote in who is suspicious of me. The last few weeks, whenever Steve Martin is mentioned, Howard has to mention how wonderful and brilliant Steve Martin is. What's going on?
What do they think is beneath that?
He says, are they making a project together? Let me ease your suspicion. I don't hate everyone in show business. There are many people who I find entertaining and fun to watch. Steve Martin, one of them.
True fans of.
Yeah, I'm a true fan of Steve Martin. I always liked him when he did his comedy albums, when he started out in his career. I liked him on Saturday Night Live. He was always funny as one of those Gorgie brothers or whatever they were called.
Right. And you liked a lot of his movies.
I liked a lot of his films. So I always compliment him because I'm not going to be fake and just say I hate him.
So there's no truth that Steve Martin will be doing your voice in Howard Stern the high school years.
That's right. I like Steve Martin. I think he's a true comedic genius because...
Did you ever find Steve Martin, the comedian, funny?
When he had specials back in the day, even like early 80s, he still had a couple specials that would be shown. I liked his comedy for what it was. And even I think he was better as like a guest on Carson, for example. When he would have a routine set up for when he was going out there, and Carson was the perfect venue for him. Even his albums, I think I'm a Wild and Crazy Guy. I think I bought that ages and ages ago. Or Comedy Is Not Pretty. I like that album, but did it make me gut laugh like Richard Pryor? No, it was his movies were better to me than his actual stand-up comedy. But he was, if you ever read the book, Born Standing Up.
No. I actually, thanks for telling me about it. I gotta check it to see if I have it on Audible.
It's great. It actually is really, really good. He's a great writer. I will give him that. But let's be honest. When you think of Steve Martin, you're thinking these days the Pink Panther fucking movies, the remakes, the Cheaper by the Dozen, all that bullshit. And he's ruined. I already said it once, and I believe I agree with him. He's done more to ruin comedy than help it at this point.
Yeah, I'm more of a Steve Martin fan when it comes to his acting.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything else. Yeah, the earlier stuff. I mean, the wild and crazy guy and all that. It's like you said, never belly laugh. It was like, okay, it's all right.
Some parts are amusing, like The Jerk is a great film. The Jerk is a great. All of Me is a great film. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I love. Bowfinger was well done, and he, to have him and Eddie Murphy in a movie that was pretty amazing. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels was good. But then, he's got a lot of films out there that I don't really care to see. Leap of Faith, apparently a lot of people like. I haven't seen it. We shouldn't go through his entire fucking catalog, but listen, if we were going to judge people on everything, Richard Pryor made so many shit movies. I lost count.
I'm sheepishly a fan of his Christmas movie called Mixed Nuts. I always found that movie hilarious.
Not My Blue Heaven.
No, I could have definitely done without that.
Yeah, there you go. So he's like, and everybody, not everything's going to be a hit, guys. We get it. There's always shit out there that just no one likes. I mean, there's Joe versus the Volcano if you're a Tom Hanks fan. So come on, The Burbs, the Money Pit. Oh my God, what a piece of shit.
People do throw that word around too much about genius.
Yeah, well, Christina Applegate is one if you listen to Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow yesterday on the news was saying that, Christina Applegate is a genius of comedy. And it's just not true.
That's just not true.
I mean, how dare she?
If you were saying that, they'd have reason to be suspicious.
I happen to be in the genius category, and I'll tell you my observation about me.
Oh, you've observed yourself.
Yes. I'm a genius because I changed the face of radio.
Oh fuck! Well, look, I have to stop there. This is like you suppress the gag reflex. Now, the only thing, like I said, we're not going to, as a show, our mandate is to trash him, and of course we have to give him some props for being as successful as he's been. But being successful doesn't necessarily mean you were groundbreaking or that you changed anything. The only thing he did was he managed to, I guess, I really think just consolidate so many. He was a hybrid, the way Prince was a hybrid, except Prince was actually a musical genius and did everything without the help of other people. He just had decided sometimes to have bands and sometimes he wanted to be solo and just hire session people. Howard was contingent. He was wholly dependent on people around him to make him better than he was.
He also was able to find a market, which is the Northeast. Mm-hmm. And was very vanilla and untapped when it came to outspoken dialogue on the radio. Imus danced that line a little bit, but he was very much on that level to go beyond the line. Anytime that you'll get some kind of straightforward conversation, it was always like on news radio or those political stations and stuff like that. You'll get that conversation. So he was able to market in the Northeast to where he could dance around, where he was in DC doing that stuff. He finally gets to New York, which he was his target goal because they weren't really doing it in New York. So he was able to get in that lane to where he could be a little bit outrageous because that at that time was not being done on that side of the country. So he was able to manifest that. Then we found out later when, Buckwald got involved with him that he was able to build that machine even more. He could spread it out. And then once syndication happened, that's when, the rest of the country were able to hear of what was the outlandishness that was going on in New York with him.
Yeah, and then it didn't always translate. I mean, there's certain markets he could never crack. Recently, Vice released or is about to release a Dark Side of the 2000s series. Like it's just a various bunch of topics within the decade, 2000 to 2010. And one of the episodes focuses on the radio wars, I guess. So Howard versus O&A, Howard versus Mancow. I think that's a good section of it. Now, Carol Chillette Cheney just messaged tagged me in a post about Opie commenting on how Vice didn't approach him in the episode. And like, they don't actually approach a lot of people when they cover anything because they, for a number of reasons. I'm glad I wouldn't have approached him either. He's a shithead and he doesn't really offer much insight into anything, to be honest. But the Mancow thing, people are saying, well, he was a dickhead too. Like, they were both dickheads, but they tapped Jackie for the Mancow episode, and then if the same one, and he said Jackie kind of threw Howard under the bus, saying, "Look, this fucking your dead father, Mancow's dead father, and Skull, and blah blah blah, and wishing AIDS on people." I signed off on that. I said, sorry, I washed my hands of it. I said, that's not coming from me. And it's rare for Jackie to be so overtly unwilling to take the blame for something.
Well, it's what we're seeing now, especially now with the Stunt Joe, Truly Anonymous world. They all, if they want to admit it or not, of course, I'm going to make this reference because what I do for a podcast, it's wrestling. All that is wrestling connected. It's all shooting promos on each other and drawing attention to a possible beef or war because that equals ratings, that equals listeners. You know, you in that sense of form. Because in reality, none of us in New York knew who Mancow was. He was in New York.
He was a Chicago guy.
Chicago. Even like Greaseman and those guys, like, we didn't hear or know of them until he came to New York. So it's basically like how we've been saying on the show. He was shadow boxing guys that actually were there, but we didn't know who they were. We didn't even know how impactful they were, or even they were getting listenership. We didn't know that.
Yeah, well, each market was very sort of centralized. So you would never get pre-internet. You wouldn't be able to stream those things. So what would you do? You'd have to rely on tapes, or if they had a TV show or something like that. Anyway, let's keep going a bit because we got a lot of ground to cover.
And the way people broadcast, I came up with something original and new and fresh that others now all have gone in my path and learned from me.
It's kind of self-serving. Doesn't sound really good when you call yourself a genius.
It doesn't sound good. You're right.
But that's exactly right. That's like saying Beth is a model.
No, I was about to say, like, you don't sit there and say, I'm a charismatic person. People are drawn to me.
Yeah.
Other people make that acknowledgement. They if you consider that the compliment, other people do that. You don't sit there and it kind of it's
a little Muhammad Ali-ish.
Yeah.
You know, now, and some would argue, if I use that analogy, well, Howard is the greatest, or Muhammad Ali was the greatest. Well, no, people would say, you know, most of the boxing aficionado would say, no. Let history will decide who was the greatest. To just relax, it'll happen in due time.
But it's also
go ahead.
When you're cutting a promo, or like how Ali's doing it, and I'm the greatest of all time, and you know he's going and he's trying to draw an audience to the upcoming fight and stuff. He's actually being genuine when he's saying this. He means this. This comes from him, like having a casual. It's not him going against Iman saying, you know, I'm the greatest of all time. It's not him going against Opie and Anthony. No, he's very, very in tune with his feelings and saying he is a genius.
Well, and the other thing is Muhammad Ali might believe he's the greatest, and he's saying it, but he's actually like he does have confidence in his ability.
Right.
You're right. He's trying to draw some gate, but with Howard, when he says this, I'm a genius shit, he's very self-conscious and doesn't actually believe. Like, he might think he is, like in deep down inside, have that spark that goes, no, I'm a fraud. And I'm scared someone's going to find out that everything I'm saying is actually bullshit.
Right.
So
I need to do this. I need to point out my genius. I'm willing to point out that Steve Martin possesses genius-like quality when it comes to comedy. Now, people say, well, what about...
are you backing off his genius? That he's not a full-fledged genius. He's got some qualities of it.
Only a genius in comedy. I'm more of an all-around genius, having scored almost 1,000 on my SATs.
Wow.
Thank you.
1,000.
That's right. Now,
don't you get a certain amount of points for just getting your name?
It's about 400. Yeah, about 400.
Almighty.
He was able to put together another 600 after that. Wow.
God.
There are other people who are geniuses, but like people say to me, you know, like, is Ben Stiller a genius?
Wait a minute.
Who says that to you?
Let's read.
Thank you, Artie. This is funny because they used to have him. They would get Ben Stiller on the show eventually all the time, and I can't fucking stand him. I know people in the show already, know all this, but I can't believe somebody as untalented as that is, with having parents he does, nothing trickled down to him.
Right, exactly. It went down the wrong leg when it should have been like he should have been a genius coming back from where he came from, what stock he came from.
Well, there are some Ben Stiller films that I like. They're not exclusively Ben Stiller. Like in what was the film? Excuse me. So There's Something About Mary but I don't think I don't think it has to do with him so much as the way that it was filmed and the Farley brothers, the way they did things.
Yeah.
But then also like Keeping the Faith. Again, it's not really a comedy, but it's more dramatic. But it's not because of Ben Stiller. He's the weakest link in the film, actually.
Yeah. I don't care what anybody tells me. Those Zoolander films are horrible.
I hate them. They're fucking awful. Again, one of my good friends forced me to watch the first one, and he was like laughing, and he was looking at my reaction. He goes, "You don't like this?" I'm like, "This is really just shit." Like, am I supposed to like this ironically? What?
I even watched early on when he was first getting on with his sketch show, and it was just there was nothing there that I saw like that would scream, "Wow, this kid comes from great stock."
God, Jesus! Talk about he's the Pauly Shore of his generation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Get this in perspective. Is it really genius to be funny?
Yes.
Or is it genius to be able to split the atom?
I think they both come from the same place.
Oh!
I think someone who can sit down and be brilliant with observation and perception that goes beyond...
So Seinfeld is a genius.
Larry David is a genius, not Seinfeld.
I agree with this, actually, because Larry David's got two successful shows on his shoulders, and when he left Seinfeld, the difference is when he left Seinfeld, you could hear you could feel the qualitative difference between the shows that didn't have him and the shows before. Not that I was a massive Seinfeld fan, but even like in retrospect, people at the time and in retrospect, everybody goes, "Yeah, these new episodes, they're not so good now that he's no longer there."
I am a fan of the stand-up, though. I am, because it's very hard to work clean in any era. It's not an easy thing to do, and he makes work and he sells out.
What about Jim Gaffigan?
Like, once again, that's another guy. It's not easy to do that. I could put him on that same level as well.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm more of a fan of Jerry when he does interviews, because he's become Gilbert's Groucho.
Yeah,
he's the one that dissects comedy now. So when I hear him sitting next to Eddie Murphy or or Colin Quinn, and they're having that conversation about their thoughts of comedy and such, he's very interesting, and has in my opinion a keen mind when it comes to it. How it translates to anything else, he knew his niche. He knew, I have this show, it runs for wherever it runs. He was able to bank on the fact that later on in life he was going to be a gajillionaire from it because of syndication, and he got it. So that's pretty genius as well.
Well, I mean, he got, let's be honest, it became a hit, and then from there on, it had the momentum of its own. It had nothing to. Eventually, there was going to be a situation like, remember Grace Under Fire?
Right.
Brett Butler was getting a lot of like plaudits at the time for being so, just being so like hot in the business. And then even though the show, like it was such a hit in the first season, her alcoholism didn't derail it until like 4 seasons in. Right. It had such a momentum. So there are things that you could just build off of. You want to know one of my favorite shows where they talk about comedy? Did you ever see the David Steinberg Inside Comedy series?
No.
He like each episode features 2 different people that he interviews, and they intercut like one interview to the other, and it's excellent if you ever get a chance.
Yeah, I know you're not a fan of the comedians in cars getting coffee.
I have some episodes. I do have like a select ones that I really cared about that, but a lot of them, and there's a great rating. Someone I don't know, it was Vulture or one of those websites where they rated all the episodes. Of course, Howard's was one of the worst.
Oh, one of the worst. Yeah, definitely. He gave nothing. He gave nothing to anything. No, but there are episodes that I found. Eddie, of course, Eddie's episode was great to watch and listen to. I actually really enjoyed Baldwin's. I liked when Alec Baldwin went on. He had good stories with Bob Einstein. Whenever he was on, he told great stories. There was that story that he told about going to Red Fox's house.
Red Fox, I love that one. Yeah,
and he was so good that he brought him twice. Thank you, Jerry, for picking me up in such a great car.
Yeah, he was Albert Brooks' brother, and rest in peace, Super Dave. And he had a feature on the show Bizarre, which I'm pretty sure was Canadian. I can't remember, but with John Biner, and he had a Super Dave segment on that where he'd always do this Evil Knievel stuff and then just get like annihilated by the accident.
Of watching Super Days, and it will always in New York. It will always come on the weirdest hour. It would either be like on 3 PM on a Sunday, or like 2 AM on a Saturday. It was always weird when it came on.
I loved his deadpan shit. It was great.
Well, he did write his own comedy.
No. He wrote his own stand-up, and it's very good, but it is not of genius quality. It is not of genius quality. I'm the Einstein of broadcasting. And everyone knows it.
But you didn't invent the radio. Now, see, being able to see a radio from nothing, that's genius.
No, not really. Putting something on the radio that people would want to listen to is genius.
That's easy.
No, that's not easy.
At first it was, because there was nothing else.
No.
Thinking to play records on it was genius.
Seinfeld is very good, but he's no Christina Applegate.
Right.
I'm the Albert Einstein of radio, of broadcasting.
Eddie Murphy's a genius?
Eddie Murphy is a comedic genius, yes.
A comedic genius.
Or comedic.
I always say he purposely would. I hate when he comedic. I hate when he would mispronounce things on purpose like that.
Comedic. Was that on purpose?
Yes, of course. Oh. He does. He wants to sound a little bit hoity-toity when he says that. Fuck you. Okay. Yeah. Hey, let's go to a comedy club.
He's a comedic genius, yes.
Comedic is a funny doctor.
He is a comedic genius, yes. Eddie Murphy is in that category.
All right. Bill Cosby.
No, not even close.
Okay. Just let me get a little further here, because we have to go just a tad further. Yeah.
Okay.
Not even close. He is very, very ordinary.
Okay. Mort Saul.
Genius level, but not...
Yeah, Go ahead.
Bill Cosby, who has been ripped off by countless of other comedians. And I won't even go by records. And I'm not even going to sit here and say that I am a huge Cosby fan, because another one, like I said, it's hard to work clean. Especially in an era where comedy was changing, the 60s, the 70s. You had the Lenny Bruce's who was coming up. Richard was getting his foot in there. Fox was killing it in the chitlin circuit and such like that. With Cosby, for him to work the way he did, and he basically just sat there and made it seem as though that you were in a room with a guy who was telling stories that was just funny.
Yep.
Even in that era, Carlin worked clean as well, and he even started changing up a little bit. Bill never strayed away, and I mean, countless of record-breaking comedy albums. It's not genius.
Well, that's the thing. It's funny because he never translated into mainstream success until he had the Cosby Show, right? And then Fat Albert, whatever. Okay.
Well, Fat Albert was first.
Yeah.
He did I Spy and such like that, and then he had the if you would consider the black exploitation movies with like City Portier and all that, which
sure
appreciated later on. But for Wiggy to say that Cosby's not a genius.
And guys, we're not talking about the rape stuff like that. That obviously is his legacy, but that does. And this is the thing I struggle with. Like when an artist does this, like when an artist torpedoes their career in such a manner, can you go back and listen to their things? I think you could make the argument that, well, they did this before I knew they were awful, so I'm going to go back to my memory of when they didn't do this. Or can you just, or do you just, because the thing is, like with there's loads of people that they believe Woody Allen molested, Mia Farrow's daughter. What's her name again? Not Satchel. What was the one? The names. Yeah, then I get all the names mixed up. But
Why am I thinking Soon Yi? Why did that come to me?
Well, I mean, they're just the fact that it was Woody, it was Mia's stepdaughter, not his. Like it's not sure Mia's daughter, adopted daughter, but it's not his stepdaughter. First of all, second of all, I can't remember, but either way, the one that they claim he molested her in the attic. He goes, I've never been in an attic in my life. I'm claustrophobic. And so anyway, they boycotted his films. They wouldn't watch him anymore. And a lot of actors and actresses decided, no, like I'm not going to work with him anymore. And yet he's still not Me Too'd. Well, cops went through his case. I'm not going to argue the merits of Woody Allen, but my point is a lot of people, there's like a demarcation zone and all of a sudden I can't listen to him anymore. Does that mean you can't watch Annie Hall ever again?
Yeah, I do the same thing with everybody who talks about R. Kelly. He did some shit, and then I don't coincide with it, but man, that motherfucker made hits though. Woo! I Believe I Can Fly. Damn it.
Right? Like, do I have to throw out The Negotiator because Kevin Spacey fucked up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love the ref with
Dennis Leary.
Dennis Leary. I love that movie.
Great film. And Glenn Ross. I can't watch that anymore. God, it's bad enough I can recite it.
Not quite genius because Lenny Bruce was the genius there.
All right. How about Richard Pryor?
Genius.
Dick Gregory.
Bright. Not a genius.
Robin, I see a pattern in all these names you're throwing out.
No, I'll tell you.
Dick Gregory was a fucking genius and such a great writer, an underrated writer.
And was prolific for his time for everything. He was way ahead of his time in comedy, in social consciousness, in politics.
Yep.
Way ahead of his time. But he's bright.
Yeah, listening to this 79 talk, it's just infuriating.
I'll tell you who's who. If you want to know.
George Carlin.
Bright.
Bright.
Not a genius.
See? I knew this would get you going.
Ugh. And I remember listening to this live or maybe, I mean, I've heard it numerous times later on YouTube, and each time it does the same thing to me. I just do the rubbing of the eyes, like, oh, what is he talking about? All right, okay.
We don't know if the first bit of we started rendering this, guys. We don't know if it actually recorded properly because there was something I've never seen happen before on the thing we're using. But first he started talking about Eddie Murphy, how he's a genius, but Bill Cosby wasn't, and I agree with this. I agree with both. Although a lot of people will tell you Bill Cosby, he influenced so many people. He might be a fucking convicted rapist now, but he, even Chris Rock will tell you he was partially responsible for him getting into stand-up.
I get it. It's not, I'll be honest with you. I when it came to stand-up, I never had like those. How people have belly laugh kind of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of hurt. It was more of that smart, thought-provoking comedy. Bill had that. Is very connecting with his audience. Another guy who worked very clean and was to have that. I thought more along the line of outside of stand-up where his genius was done, especially with Fat Albert, Cosby Show and stuff like that. I thought those were the most influential shows in television history and such. And I get that with Eddie. I go to contrast with everybody says the Mount Rushmore of comedy. With me, I love Eddie to death, but we've only had a handful of material to work with when it came to that. So it's very debative to do that. But Jesus, and this is why I say I could never take him serious when it comes to his thoughts about comedy. It's outstanding how oblivious he is to what comedy really is.
Well, yeah, and so what we had talked about, even though the recording may or may not have picked up, was Eddie just was not prolific enough to be considered a true genius of the art form, even though he probably is a genius. Like he probably is, like in terms of being physical, in terms of being able to do impressions, in terms of just delivery, doing a joke, stage presence, in terms of charisma, in terms of sheer talent and intelligence, like making funny jokes, not just, shock stuff. Because at the time, I remember specifically, a lot of the critics were, well, they were mixed. Delirious was the really amazing one, and Raw was kind of the, everybody's seen Delirious. Now let's see what he's got. And I think he suffered a little bit from that. Like, I think the fact that he couldn't make two specials that were just as good as each other, I don't believe. Although they were like superly popular, I think Eddie suffered from, I don't know if I can top Delirious.
Yeah, I draw comparisons to with Eddie. I do the same with the Notorious B.I.G. with Biggie Smalls, where I've said that you could always argue to say that Biggie's probably one of the greatest rappers of all time, but he didn't have a big catalog. He only had 2 major albums and one that was done after his death, and it's always put on that level. And me being a Brooklyn kid, I'll always say Biggie all day, BK. So it's like, you'll put them up there, but they both share the same, I guess, kind of fate when it came to their materials, that you're really looking at only 2 strong aspects of their recognizable works. You could also say that Eddie on Saturday Night Live was great. You could say that he was amazing on there. And I could say with Biggie that, I've on whatever features he did on other people's albums or songs, he was, phenomenal. Right. Still, you can't sit there, because we've seen, we've seen the aftermath, where not only that their material just was, I'm not going to say didn't hold up, but there's a lot that came after them where a lot of people either, they were, they took from them, or they were inspired by them and actually possibly exceeded them. And if not, did exceed them.
Right. Like, so if you take Eddie Murphy's film roles, like, but Beverly Hills Cop, like, he blew up so quick. And he was in, I can't remember the Dudley Moore film he did.
No,
Trading Places was the one he did with Dan Aykroyd. But what did he do with Dudley Moore? He got paid like $1 million to star in, not Arthur.
When he played the military, the tank. This is gonna kill me. I gotta look it up because it's gonna kill me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's gonna kill me.
God. That bothers me. I should know that one because it's such an obscure thing, and that's usually been my benchmark.
It's not Basic Training. I forgot the fucking name of it.
Eddie.
I got it. It's gonna come. I'm gonna get it. Thank you, IMDb. Where it comes from.
Best Defense.
Best Defense. I knew it was with a B.
Okay, so he started becoming a big star in that way, but then you got to see him just do his dramatic chops with Dreamgirls and Dolomite. I mean, he was able to, and The Golden Child, and Coming to America. Like, these were all evidence that he was multi-talented, and I don't think he needs much more to prove that, I suppose. But I think now as an adult, I would love to see him try to do a stand-up special to see if he could top the first 2, which is tough to do, but you've got to compare yourself against yourself, and I would love to see if he could get close to it even, and I would admire that a lot.
Yeah. Well, let's just hope for it, because there is a Beverly Hills Cop coming out soon, so let's see how he does there.
Yeah.
I'd put him in the genius category.
Put him wherever you want, Artie, but nobody cares where you put anybody. Well, you're not a genius yourself. I am.
Exactly.
So only a genius.
Oh, wait. I'm not saying that Artie's a genius. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, why would he say nobody cares about Artie's critique of who has that kind of level in comedy, when the guy in the conversation that he's talking to is in that business?
He is in that business, and he's and I think most comics, and he himself, Artie doesn't have any aspersions of himself as a comedian. He knows he thinks he sucks.
Right.
Like, he knows he can draw some people, and this is 2003. Granted, he's not like Uber. He's not making the big money, but Artie later on started buying his own hype a little bit. And when he got into that later drug phase, he thought, like the money meant he was this much of a draw. The money meant he could make that. The money meant what it meant in that moment, but I don't think it meant he wasn't getting paid what he should be paid for his talent. He was getting paid for being the train wreck he's on the Stern Show, and he would admit that earlier on. I get what I get because I'm on the Stern Show. If I'm off the Stern Show, I'm working clubs again. I'm working, the Funny Bone. I'm not playing arenas anymore. I'm not playing, not arenas, but I'm not playing concert halls. So, but his taste in comedy is quite good.
Yeah, he's always had a finger on the pulse of classic comedians. Later on, when he got on, he'll hype up certain guys that he done shows with. Someone a little bit of hit and miss, but his goals are guys that he was working with, so he had to big him up. He had to put him, but like we say in wrestling, you got to put him over. But he was very astute when it came to stand-up comedy.
Big time.
Can tell you. Wait. Who is the reason I had to reveal myself as a genius?
Because he's the one who can tell you who belongs in the group.
You're a nice guy. You're funny.
Not even bright, huh?
He's funny.
He's funny, not bright.
I wouldn't. In all
Artie is every man.
All right,
and Artie is funny.
Adam Sandler.
No.
But that's what they thought of you early on. They thought you were the early man. How can if Artie was sitting here?
Well, he does look like early man the way he walks. Yeah, I knew you meant to say every man.
The missing link.
Well, he walks a little Cro-Magnon, dragging his heels, dragging his knuckles. You're right. He was considered. Well, he wasn't like. I mean, on the East Coast, I suppose he'd be considered the everyman.
Right.
But you're right though. They did think he was funny. They did think Howard was funny, or they thought the show was funny. They said it. I think is it. We love the show, and because it's Howard Stern, the Howard Stern show, that means Howard Stern is funny. That kind of thing.
Right. It's like it would be compared to if like Artie was sitting there breaking down who he thought was genius in radio. Like he would say Rick Dees was a genius or Scott Shannon,
Shadow Stevens,
and Wiggy would look at him like he's got a missile coming out of his head. He was like, what are you talking about? You speaking about comedy the way that you are, you really are sounding like you're off your ledge, like you're on the ledge. Like, what's wrong with you?
Well, there's certain people that shouldn't be talking about endeavors that they've never, like we tried it one time and it was awful. When he did the the Ritz, we reviewed him, and the Club Benet. He did like a couple of show, but it was the tape we had was from him performing at the Ritz, and it was awful. It was beyond awful, and we had to stop doing it. There was 2 parts, and we couldn't make it to a third because we just were brutalized by it. There's only so much bad comedy. Like Len and I were going to go through Shuli's 2 Shulogy albums to see if we could, see he can't get through it. Like he says, it's going to be like War and Peace. I have to go piece by piece through it, and I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah,
and cover it for the show.
It's definitely root canal without Novocaine.
Oh, root canal. It's better someone drives a Mack truck over my mouth.
Ouchie, you don't need to take any of that medication. You'll be fine. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You don't need that.
Thank you, Ray.
No. He's got his fans and he's got people he makes laugh, but he's not a genius.
You see, I think Adam Sandler's a genius, so maybe that's why I'm the everyman.
No, Adam Sandler's not a genius.
He is not a genius.
He just call him Adam Sandman.
I think
Adam Sandman is not a genius.
I think he's very funny.
Jim Carrey is not a genius.
I'm going to give you a new category.
I'm sorry.
Jim Carrey's brilliant.
No, he's bright. And he's funny.
I think he's hilarious.
Just like you're funny.
I don't think he's brilliant. I don't think he's bright. I did think he was funny at one point and a good talk show guest. And he's talented. There's certainly Jim Carrey has talent. There's no question. But there's no one going to call him a genius.
No, I definitely wouldn't put him on that scale.
Same and certainly not Sandler either.
Yeah, I was going to say same thing with Sandler. I wouldn't have put him up there anyway. But you got to just give him where the not many geniuses get billionaires, so like almost billionaires. Like the Kardashians aren't geniuses, but they made a hell of a lot of money though. They pretty much
right. What I remember when Andy Dick was talking about Rickles, and he said, it's amazing, I know, Fitzsimmons was talking about how Rickles, he loved the fact that Rickles was 80 something and still doing it and still doing comedy. And he already goes, I'm just depressed that Don Rickles is 80 something and playing the Golden Nugget. Meanwhile, like Seinfeld's, got 25, like 50 Porsches and stuff. And, it's true. If there were some kind of, merit level for the kind of work someone has done and the money they should be getting, Seinfeld would be getting Rickles money and Rickles would be getting Seinfeld money.
Yeah, if history would have been financially feasible, that everything would have been prorated.
Yes.
to comedians from that era. Yeah,
right.
Rickles would have died a billionaire. He would have been good. He would have good to go
easily.
But he's not a genius.
He's not a genius.
No, he's not.
This is interesting.
You're learning something.
Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers is not a genius. He is very funny.
See, I told you this is going to infuriate you. Maybe you should take this one in steps.
With the small, and once again, we talk about small time of career that we know them of. Peter Sellers was one of my early days of getting into comedy, like comedic movies, like that era and such. Same as Mel Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I tell people how much of a fan I am of Sid Caesar, they lose their mind of them. Although the age that I am now, people go, yeah, I see that. But when I was 17, 18 years old and saying how huge of a fan, I'm mad to this day that I cannot find a movie that Showtime made, which was the play adaptation of Laughter on the 23rd Floor, and I cannot find it anywhere. And it's a phenomenal movie. It's about the story of the Sid Caesar Hour. For you to say Peter Sellers is not a genius,
he's unbelievably. He's something else. Well, you know what you should do if you haven't already? Did you email Showtime and ask them?
I'm going to. You know what? I'm going to ask about. I might have to do that because the God who was on there. It was Nathan Lane. I believe Hank Azaria was a part of it. It's such a brilliant adaptation of the play. It was awesome, and I'm telling you, Fillmore, I was 17, 18 years old around the time when that happened, and I will watch that movie on a loop. And I grew up a kid from the projects in Brooklyn, and when the guys would come to my house and want to, light up a little green grass, whatever, and they'll look at me like, "What the hell are you watching?" And I'm like, "Dude, shut up!" I'm watching it, and they would sit there and laugh hysterically. I don't know if it's the weed, I don't know, but it was brilliant. Oh God, I loved it. And the best part about it was on Showtime. What they did was they had the Sid Caesar documentary first, and then they played the movie. Yeah. And you saw what Imogene Coco, Carl Reiner was the cast and writers that was part of it. Woody Allen, Mel Brooks. Oh my God, it was like my.
It was All Star.
It was ridiculous.
It was All Star all the way, and that doesn't always work. If you've seen the film, it's a mad world. You'd expect that to be a lot better than it is, and it's not. It's just not.
It's not. That was one of my biggest disappointments of the Mills.
It was like a bridge too far. How could a film with James Caan and Robert Redford and Michael Caine and it's not Michael Caine. I think he might be in it, but what's his name? Sean Connery be bad? And it was, and it's directed by Richard Attenborough. But your show of shows. It's funny what we got in Canada because a lot of the stuff we had a certain amount was Canadian content, but then we would get shitloads of British and American shows based on they just need to fill time, right? They need to fill broadcast time. So we got stuff sometimes that you wouldn't have expected well after the fact. Obviously the older sitcoms too, the Honeymooners, the I Love Lucy show and stuff like that. That was Universal pretty much. Right. And but like, you know, or like Monty Python, we had loads of. We had even like Allo Allo. We had what's the one? Absolutely Fabulous. We had loads of stuff to be able to watch, but the to be able to understand like the Carol Burnett show, what that did to people like back in the day.
That's another one. Oh my God, whenever I would I would when they would run the reruns, I was blessed to have that small window of my life where my early life where my family members introduced me to that. Had to be maybe about 7, 8 years old when Carol was running it, and those moments I would remember 10 years later, and I would wait to see where I can find it again so I can see it. You know, they didn't have Honeymooners was something that was always in New York. It was every 11:30, Channel 11 every night.
You could definitely find a channel that would have it.
Right. But when you were able to finally get shows like the Carol Burnett show, Laughing, Nick was like Nickelodeon after that Nick at Night thing, when they were able to show those shows. Oh my goodness, it was
a godsend.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he's making me mad. He's really making me angry.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
To be a genius, you have to be fully realized in an area. At 5 years old, I knew how I was going. At 5 years old, I knew how I was going to reinvent radio.
Fuck off.
I wish I was a genius so I could disagree with you about Peter Sellers.
I know. How can you disagree with me?
That's what makes Artie brilliant.
He's brilliant. Absolutely. Well, the thing is, the Artie is unfortunately not at a level at this time that he can really go toe to toe with Howard. By the time they get to Sirius, he can tell him to go fuck himself.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. He's still feeling his way through the show now.
Yeah.
Be on my level is different.
It's frustrating not to be able to disagree with you.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Fred Norris is funny.
Fred Norris is not a genius.
I don't know about that. Fred does some genius things.
Well, he's not fully real.
Okay, so we've often had this conversation, and many people in the QF universe have this love-hate kind of tug of war about Fred.
Okay.
Fred was my guy early on.
Right.
When it came to him doing like his impressions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When once Billy came in, who the fuck?
Fred who?
Exactly. Oh my God. One of the most embarrassing things that I've ever heard in life was the Raymond Burr impressions.
Oh yeah.
Back and forth. And there was even a YouTube page that did the Raymond Burr segment, and they just eliminated Fred because it was useless. There was no need for it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to his timing with sound effects, and who knows where he was integral in the writing, was he a genius for that show?
I don't know if he's a genius for the show. I think he fit. He fit the. Was he? He was like the donut when you get a flat tire. You throw the shit one you have on, and it's not comfy, but it'll do. With the sound clips and stuff, I agree he had a talent for it, but I don't know that you'd call it genius. I don't know, proficient. Is that? I guess he was capable enough.
I've had conversations with people, and some may say that Fred could just be as comparable to Scott the Engineer, because they say that Scott was a great engineer, genius early on back in the days when you had to do everything before digital and such.
Sure.
Cut, being able to do layovers and be able to piece by piece put the stuff together. They said Scott was top of his game.
Yeah.
So both became obsolete after a while.
That's the word we're gonna use. Yeah. And Fred, his impressions. I mean, more. If you like, first of all, his Ronnie impression is so god awful. I'm certain Fred knows it's awful and doesn't give a fuck. He's just collecting a paycheck. But then the Nicole Bass one, I found really annoying. Him doing like he would do. I think he did Double A a couple times.
Hi, Howard.
So,
Howard.
but I mean, most of us could do these. Yeah. Hi. How's it going? What's going on?
Where's Bethel? I'm looking for Bethel.
Right, in between child porn searches on Google. Well, the other thing is, like, I'm trying to think who else. Earlier on, God, who's the other one? Oh, Jim Florentine. He did a passable Florentine impression. I have to give him that.
That one was good. I like Jim's that impression of Jim. That I liked.
Right. But other things, I mean, take him or leave him. I think Fred was overrated in a lot of ways. And as for the writing, like you said, we'll never know what part was should have been attributed to who and who did what. I mean, Jackie, some of the Jackie jokes were funny because when he did have a good capacity to write for Howard, because Howard didn't have a fucking phony bone in his body. The only funny bone he'd have is when Ralph would fuck him. No
queer bone, and that's not funny. It's more queer.
Yeah, I got that from Levy, and Chappelle likes to steal from, and I think that when it comes down to it, it really was the whole ball of wax, and that even if things bombed, they could be funny in the bombing, like in that format, in the format of the show. Bad bits could get laughed at for being so bad, but on a stage, you go to a comedy club and you bomb, no one laughs.
And when listening to a lot of the comedians like Colin Quinn, like we mentioned Seinfeld, even when the up and coming guys were going through it, they said that their best comedy came from bombing. And you would even probably attest to it, that it was you sharpen your knife that way. This is where you got it. When you didn't get the reaction, or you got maybe a heckle or two going on, this is where you was like, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm doing this. This is where you make your bones and you earn your craft, whatever cliche taglines you want to put on it. But wow.
Well, the thing is, like, also you got like Carson. Carson was a master of getting into digging himself a ditch and having to get out of it. And you wanted him to bomb so that you could see him rescue himself. It really was the high wire act. And he was live, and there was no there was no fucking, there were certain things they could do in the West Coast feed, I suppose. But in New York specifically, if he bombed, he bombed. He had no choice but to get out of it. And he himself, I think, enjoyed that partially, because that was a bit of adrenaline there. Like, if a joke didn't work, he deliberately left it in sometimes, and then, or he said, let's see if I can make this one work. And if it doesn't, the save was the killer. And no one else ever did that.
Wiggy
the way Carson did.
Yeah, Wiggy would never know about that because he would be too afraid to get that instant feedback.
Yeah. and Dice, God, he released The Day the Laughter Died Part 2 as an entire, like, it's a sequel to an album that he did at a club with like 18 people in it and performed and recorded it, and he gets no laughs in The Day the Laughter Died Part 2. I understood what he was trying to do with that album, make an entire album of bombing. And there's a certain bravery that goes along with it, but I don't know that it was funny in the way that you traditionally call it a comedy album funny.
That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bomb. That was the whole album. He's doing something right now on Instagram that I came across. As a matter of fact, I came across it a day or two ago on Instagram, where he's just walking around New York City doing mini films on the Instagram reels. And he's just like interacting with people, but he seems like he's disorientated, but also like
I've seen a couple.
You saw it, right?
It's funny.
He runs into a woman in a supermarket. He goes, "Aren't you the woman from Real Housewives? You're great. You're doing a great." And the way that it's shot, I'm trying to figure out if I'm gonna like this, but so far I'm so intrigued by it that I'm following it.
he's being a little Jerry Lewis-ish, like in the way he's doing it. And I remember he was with Eleanor in a diner or something, and they just have this. He's trying to. He's almost doing a little Chris Farley as well. Like, can you help me peel this? Can you start my orange? You know. Can you start the peel? Anyway, I gotta give him props for that. He is always he likes to embrace some of this stuff, and he's always liked filming. So.
He's not fully realized yet. Not a genius. Good guy, though.
Goodness.
Very good. Good father, from what I hear.
Good egg.
All right, Robin Williams.
No.
Ah.
Not a genius.
Woody Allen.
On with his comedy, I'll give him this. Robin Williams was a notorious fucking joke thief. I know you loved him. I love him as an actor, but and he was a phenomenal performer at some point, but I mean, like I hated his fucking shtick. After I saw Martin Short destroy him on SCTV, I could never see Robin Williams in do comedy and laugh ever again.
Okay. Stand-up wise, I was a fan because I did, and this is early on. I learned later on, and
no one knew about all that other stuff.
I got that. But regardless of what you say, performance-wise, entertainment-wise, there's no other company that there's no other genre that would sit there or a area of entertainment that would allow you to spend millions of dollars for you to just go out there and shoot from the hip, not follow the script, just do what you do, go out there and make whatever goes out there happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many directors and producers and film editors that said there's so many highlight reels that we had to cut that was so hilarious that our movies would have went from 1 hour and 20 to 3 hours, and it would have been like The Godfather for everything that he did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like throwaways. They were legit funny, belly laugh funny that we just couldn't do it. It hurt me to find out that his stand-up was, it was ripped and torn. And I think later on when you saw his later stand-ups that you saw that he had to put the work in.
Yeah.
Because everybody knew what he did early in the days. And it's still funny, but it wasn't what he was early on.
No.
But his genius came from off the stage, not on the stage.
Well, either way, there's no question that he made his mark in the business, and I think he's got enough turns in dramatic roles. Like I said, Good Will Hunting. Forget it. Insomnia. Even it was a film I hated, but he was great in it. 1 Hour Photo later on.
Yeah.
I think Awakenings, this like sort of straight turns that he would do. The World According to Garp, Dead Poet Society was fantastic in. I mean, there's Dead Poet Society was the one I keep thinking of because he sort of does in the middle of it. You get jarred because he starts to do a little bit of stand up in the film, almost doing impressions. And that's a little off-putting. But aside from that, the performance is spot on, and I think it was some of his best work.
But then I could say with Wiggy's argument is that not comedy. That was all his deep down dramatical stuff. Right? And I can get that. But even his comedic movies, please.
It's too close to the bone.
I can't have this conversation with him.
Yeah.
No. Not a genius. No.
Billy Crystal.
No. Not a genius.
Dave Chappelle.
No. Not a genius.
Chris Rock.
Now, no one would say that about Chappelle then.
Wait, I was about to say, we were going to have this argument. That time, I will be in the same vein. But even still, the Chappelle show at that time was groundbreaking.
It was. And it owes a lot to like In Living Color, completely. Like all the shows that came before it, absolutely. But and now, and I think I know that now, he's considered this, he's in one of the pantheon of, fucking massive stand-ups. But I'm not caring for his Netflix specials, the last few. I think he's being way too self-indulgent, and I like a more faster-paced job done with my comedy. Not that I have to have joke, but if I'm from the old school, I love the old school comics that would just like keep hitting you and hitting you and hitting you. Dave wants to make it more social political and wants to make this, he's drawing things out, I find, and I don't think there's as many gut laughs in his specials as I expect from a guy that's that talented.
Yeah, I get it. And we could do like a whole like breakdown or for on another time on the other channels, but at that time where Wiggy's talking about, I could say I get it. Now listening to Chappelle these days, it's like, nah, the guy's in my opinion, he's a genius, man. It's way too smart for a lot of people to even laugh at, because sometimes they're laughing because they're uncomfortable. And I like that. And I like that they're laughing because they're uncomfortable.
Let me think for a second. Let me get into my
flashes. Well, thinking about it is a nice
compliment. What are you saying, Fred? You're only funny.
Chris Rock. Chris Rock is not a genius.
Oh.
Not yet.
Kinnison.
He could be, but he's not.
I'm not sure about it.
Kinnison, you're right. Bring that.
Kinnison was a genius.
Kinnison was a genius.
Yes. A genius.
Bill Hicks?
No, I agree. I agree about the Chris Rock thing.
Bring the Pain was his kind of tentpole bit of it was a genius stand-up. There's no question. I'm not even a huge Chris Rock fan, but I had to admit that was a piece of genius. But
everybody can say that it was a rip of and he'll even admit to it. It's a rip of Raw. That he could say that he took that kind of thing. But he's another one that did the Eddie Murphy playbook where he just sat down after a couple of stand-ups and walked away and was like, okay, I'm good with that. I'm all right.
Which, I don't blame him if you can do it, but he got a bunch of shitty movies out of it. And I mean, a couple of good ones, but I mean, the ones where he was the star, I don't think he ever realized, like, I'm not a leading man. I'm not, no one's going to see Chris Rock unless he's, it's Chris Rock and so-and-so, like he's a sidekick or he's with somebody's partners.
But it's another testament to them earning it early on, knowing that they were gonna die or fail wherever they fail or succeed one way or the other, and banking on what they got. His first two stand-ups, the HBO specials, which the other thing that people don't understand, in our era, in our demo, is HBO did so much for stand-up.
Huge.
I mean, ridiculous pomp and circumstance for comedians. If you had an HBO special, and I'm not talking about like the half-hour specials that they would give certain comedians every Friday night or such. If they gave you an hour with the celebratory kind of environment and with the large audience, you were destined to go. Rock was like one of those early guys that got that. Dice got that early.
HBO specials were prestigious.
The first groundbreaker for it, who got it every year when he wanted it, was Carlin. Carlin got it every year when he wanted it.
Yes.
Once HBO pulled away from that, Showtime kind of did a little thing for them here and there. Then it became Comedy
Netflix.
Then no, what the big Comedy Central.
Oh, in terms of who took over the spotlight of so and so's got a special. Yeah, Comedy Central definitely took a big chunk of it. It
became that. Showtime would do it. Showtime is actually still pushing it a little more these days, but now it's the Netflix. If you got a Netflix special, no, you're on the game now.
Yeah. And I mean, the amount of money they threw at Chris Rock post divorce for those two specials, which I believe was to own them outright. Like, I think he sold them. those things.
You could blame Comedy Central and basically you can blame Comedy Central for Dane Cook if y'all want to.
Yeah, it's true. I think they bought Rock's specials outright. I think they gave him some like $20 million each or whatever, and you keep going, how can they afford to give Chris Rock that kind of money? Netflix. Now, some would argue that the service is actually like they might be in the red in terms of making profits off of individual projects, but I think they're banking on like the money constantly flowing in through subscriptions and not being worried about downloading and whatever. But is Chris Rock worth $20 million a special? I don't know.
Listen, they banked on Chappelle, and they've seen some money revenue from it.
Certainly.
Yeah, little by little. So they would, I guess they would hope that Rock would do the same thing for them. But at the same time, it's like, at the era that we're talking about, HBO was like, oh my God, that was the launching pad for anybody. If you got an HBO special, then
right,
you are on a rocket out of the atmosphere.
Right, and then A&E, when they would do the an evening at the Improv, like these were like this if you couldn't get on, whether you got on Carson or not at some point, if you got a little slot in there or Star Search even. I remember Sinbad, the first time I saw him was on Star Search. God, it was some awful.
Yeah,
he had like orange, like wearing all orange with orange hair and. Is Carrot Carrot Top ripped off Sinbad, I guess. But he was funny at some point. I just don't I loved him on A Different World. I love that show.
Yeah.
I thought that was his best, he's best. And that film he did with Phil Hartman, House Guest, fantastic. God, even though he rips off the Tim Conway dentist thing.
When he did with Schwarzenegger, the Christmas movie, he was actually funny in that one as well.
Yeah, he's got his moments.
Yeah. Not a genius. May he rest in peace. Funny guy. This doesn't mean these people aren't funny.
Letterman.
No. He's a very nice man, though.
Leno.
No.
Now, you said he was very funny.
He's not fully realized.
Right.
Now, here's the thing about Leno. At one point, he was the number 1 comic in the United States. Number 1. Like the one that they all looked to save comedy, basically. And he was edgy.
Another clean comic. He was edgy, but it was another clean comic.
Yep. And I wouldn't call him a genius either, to be honest. But he was like a fucking Swiss Army knife. He could play any venue. he told a joke. He's not a joke. He told a story on the Rogan show, I think, about playing an all women's Christian school or something like that, and just to see if he could do it, or Oral Roberts University. That's what it was. And he said, I wanted to see it just to see if I could. And I go, I could barely, but I did it. And it takes bravery to get out of your, he was saying anybody can just stay in Boston and play to the same crowds over and over again. As soon as my act was working somewhere, I went somewhere else to see if I could make it happen in the Midwest or whatever. And he did that around the country until he got enough people to follow him. It was pretty amazing, his story, Jay Leno. Whatever you think of him and the Tonight Show and all that shit, his stand-up story was pretty phenomenal. And hence, he was fearless on stage.
Like I said, there's comedians that will give you that belly-hurting laughter, and there's comedians that will give you that, I like that. That's smart. I like that. And Jay was one of those guys that it's smart.
Yeah.
You didn't have to put an F word in it or the S word in it, and it still got it over. So there is a integral play of genius with that. There is, because, not having to do that or not to do that much to get a joke over, to make a room still get you. It's still a smart play, but no, I wouldn't put him. I wouldn't put him up there. No way.
Not a genius.
Not a genius. All right.
John Ritter?
Ivan Reitman.
Ivan Reitman? Not a genius.
Oh, you're kidding.
Brilliant guy, but not a genius.
Brilliant. How can he be brilliant and miss genius?
Brilliant.
How about,
How can he be brilliant and miss being a genius?
Don't be insulted by this. This is a very high level.
I don't understand that.
He's brilliant.
how about
He goes into the editing room. He can see things that other people can't see.
Yes.
But to be a genius is a whole different thing.
Harold Ramis.
Now hold on. He's just about to say Harold Ramis. No. Harold Ramis was not a genius, but he was an incredible writer.
No. But even what he just said about Ivan Reitman, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say it's the one or the other, but I'm not a genius, so I can't be on his level to contribute.
Why are we even releasing this? We're not geniuses.
No.
I got one. Bill Bellamy.
All right, I got one. What's that guy's name? Bill Murray.
Bill Murray is a genius.
There you go.
Is a genius.
That's right.
I got one.
Not too many geniuses. Oh, John Belushi.
Okay, before he goes to Belushi, why would he put Bill Murray as genius, but no one really questioned it? I love Murray, love him.
Yeah,
great.
Right.
His comedy, his screen, if you want to say that, which means that somebody edited his comedy, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, sure.
Why would you put him on genius level? Where?
I think there's a sort of where the fuck does he get it from? Quality about Bill Murray.
Question that one I would have questioned.
I never found him a genius. I did enjoy a lot of his work. I'm trying to think, and even one of my favorite films of him is not even. I mean, it's a comedy and it's a drama. It was Lost in Translation.
Oh,
I thought he was fucking brilliant in that, and it has even more meaning for me living in Asia as many years as I have. My wife and I saw that in the theater, and when it came out, and we were in hysterics. Like when the older Japanese hooker comes in and she starts going, "Lip my stockings," which is it's a throwaway bad joke because the R's and the L's get fucked up over in Asia often, just in many countries, not just Japan. And that whole thing, and then the commercial when the dish director's shouting a mile a minute in Japanese, and the translations more intense. I'm sure there was more.
Everybody
he nailed it.
Everybody draws him from like Caddyshack and
Stripes, Ghostbusters,
such like. One of my favorite movies in which he was probably on screen maybe about, if I would say anything more, was maybe like 15 minutes, was Kingpin. I thought he was
funny in that
movie in that shit. He was
great.
Even but no one challenged him to say that Murray was a genius. I mean, his stuff that he did with Saturday Night Live was good, but
yeah.
I don't know.
I think if people had seen him like his improvs did days like at Second City, that they would tell you he was a force of nature. The same way Farley was a force of nature.
Yeah.
I think Farley was hysterically funny, for example, but not a genius.
Right.
Like that. I agree with him on that. But anyway, we'll keep going. But I wouldn't call him a genius, Bill Murray, by any stretch.
No. Dan Aykroyd is closer to a genius, believe it or not, than Belushi. But not a genius.
On Saturday Night Live, he was...
If you saw Celtic Pride, you would never call him a fucking genius.
No, neither. And I never would have even put Belushi in that category either.
No, God, no. He didn't do enough work. His stuff on Saturday Night Live kind of propelled him into other things. But Belushi was not... and maybe he would have gone on to do really good dramatic stuff, as well. That's the thing. I think that was Belushi's trajectory, but he wasn't a genius, and neither is Dan Aykroyd.
And believe me, I went and was digging deep for a lot of Belushi stuff, and a lot of the stuff I was like, I don't see it. I don't.
No. He picked bad projects. Continental Divide, Neighbors. These were not great films.
The Steven Spielberg movie he was in.
1941.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't see it. I don't get
Spielberg couldn't do comedy. Like he had all these people on screen, and he couldn't make them funny because the script wasn't great.
He wanted to do comedy so bad, and nothing.
But he had to stop.
He's not a genius.
No, he's not. And by the way, guys, we're cutting this episode because I wanted to really, and we're not even going to get to the whole thing. There's a whole bunch more. It's going to be a two-parter most likely. So this is going to be our Use Your Illusion.
You done hit the nerve of Fillmore and I's fucking passion, and this is what you're getting right now.
There you go.
Genius. Yeah. Not everything they do is great, these geniuses. Even I have slipped up here and there with a bit.
Slipped up? What about Priest and Boy was a real fucking barnstormer.
Exactly.
Oh, man, the hand puppets.
But I can tell you, Dan Aykroyd, if he was a genius, something hit him in the head and he lost.
You know who's a genius?
Who?
My ex-wife's lawyer.
He's also a funny guy, too. I've hung out with him.
What is it?
Tom Green.
No.
Oh,
Come on.
please.
Stop it.
Chris Farley.
No.
Class idiot.
No.
Brian Dunkelman.
No, come on. You're trying to be funny.
Give me a break. I'm trying to think who could be another genius.
Mel Karmazin.
Well, yeah, but that's not.
In a different field.
It's not comedic.
I've seen genius.
He's getting on to, he can almost see the radio and make it genius.
He was genius enough to know I was a genius. Very few people didn't understand my genius.
Hey, well, then I'm a genius.
Jesus Christ.
Slow down, Robin. Slow down.
If you added all of the brain power in that room and then quadrupled it, you still wouldn't get, I don't think you'd get into college.
How many gigawatts we could get from that room?
You couldn't. It wouldn't be enough to light a match in that fucking room. No, I mean I'm overdoing. I'm overselling it, and I'm being a little overzealous because I hate hearing unfunny people fucking just talk comedy. And some would argue I shouldn't be talking about it either. Well, that's your take. But what this episode and this series of episodes, guys, because this is going to be a two-parter for certain. I would like you guys to have your take on what you feel about the people mentioned, about their Howard. You have your say, because again, it's all subjective. But I like hearing the opinions, I like reading the opinions. Even if I disagree with the opinion, it might be amusing.
You are genius.
I can see that long before anybody else could. I saw it before Mel.
Mozart, Mel, and me.
Mozart. Oh, my goodness.
3 geniuses. You know who isn't a genius?
Who?
Tom. Very slow.
Well, nobody's going to argue with you there.
He's retarded.
Oh, my goodness.
Let's try to figure out retard.
But there is a level.
Well, I'm just trying to get a picture. So it's Chris Rock is not, even though he's been brilliant.
Chris Rock, that's a tough one. He's pretty brilliant. I don't know. I don't know.
School's out on him, though. No. The school has not turned in his grade yet.
He's a very brilliant guy. He might be a genius. I'm not sure on him. If he does the show again, maybe.
I think, well, he's a weird guy because if all he ever did was that 96 HBO special, Bring the Pain, if that was all he ever did, I'd say he's a genius.
He doesn't, a lot of stuff he does bad. It throws you off.
See, he makes really bad movies.
Yeah, he's not a
really
genius
bad,
of that.
Yeah.
But he's so brilliant as a stand-up.
The thing about people don't understand when it comes to not only comedians but actors, where they sit there and they are in these bad movies.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a thing that goes on, like used to be back in the 40s and in the 50s, in the 30s and such, where certain actors are contractually tied to films.
Mm-hmm.
So many of them, they have these films that come up to them, and for them to get out that contract, they'll take shit movies to get out of them. And then there's other ones who sit there and they have, a 3-picture deal over the whatever the case may be, and they'll say, all right, especially for the new up and comers, the new ones in the business, they'll be like, yeah, I'll do this movie, I'll do this, and I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do it because they think that they can make it to something fun. They think they can make, Chris takes, Rock will take Head of State or I think I love my wife or something like that, and would take it to say, yeah, I think I can make it something, and then find out like, nope, it's not anything. But like I'm my mind is boggled that Ryan Gosling is in the Barbie movie. Like, why would he take that? It's like, why would he do that?
I'll tell you what. Sometimes it's actors want comics or whoever it is. They want to stretch. They want to see if, like you said, they can do it. Like, maybe I can delve into this a little bit. Other times, yeah, it's the business that you make in order because you got fucking mortgage payments to make. I mean, like, what was that famous Michael Caine line about Jaws? The Revenge, or Jaws 3D, and he said, "No, I've never seen the film, but I've seen the house that it paid for, and it's great." And a lot of these guys, they all will admit loads of people do things to take the money. I think for Rock, it was definitely a take the money and run thing. If they offered him $4 million for Head of State, and he didn't have to do a year of fucking stand up for it to make that money and more. Maybe you take it, and if it's a bomb, it's a bomb. And the other thing is, some of these guys go, well, it's going to be like a fucking $10 million budget movie. They're going to make their money back in rentals. I'm not going to not get any other work if this is a bomb.
People are coming to the house. My wife is upstairs crying. I think you should tell your godfather what everybody else seems to know. I want all inquiries made. I want no acts of vengeance. I want you to call all the heads of the 5 families.
Oh, no.
To